Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Team Tuesday this week with Caterina Reinke. Hey Caterina, welcome back.
Hi Vasco, thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. So, Caterina, on Tuesdays, we talk about teams and how sometimes they get in their own way. But before we dive into that, share with us, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say, since you are a social anthropologist, so quite a different background than many of the Scrum Masters we've interviewed before. So with that introduction, what's the book that most influenced you in your career as a Scrum Master?
So there are actually two books I wanted to mention here. One is a quite obvious choice, I think. It's Jeff Patton's User Story Mapping. I get it out like on a weekly basis, I would say, because it's just really easy to read, really easy to digest, and you can just use the methods described in the book on a daily basis. And my book really looks like a workbook with lots of notes and annotations. So that is like the obvious choice. And the other thing that I usually think of, never reading that much since university, but still have it really much in mind, often is called The Distinction by Pierre Bourdieu. In German, it's called Define und Unterschiede. And Pierre Bourdieu is a French philosopher, and he wrote a lot about the French upper class and class system in general. And the interesting part of his work concerning the Scrum Master role, I think, is that you always have to consider the background of people and their whole cultural baggage they have, and the whole little distinctions in language and what they signify about their backgrounds. For instance, if I have an education in Germany as an engineer, I have a very specific mindset. And if I might be a developer from India, I also have a very specific mindset, because education is different, the surroundings I grew up with, and that we also bring, of course, to the working place. Because when we step over the door, we don't leave all our baggage behind, but bring it to the table, to the working table. So Pierre Bourdieu is always an author I think about very much in my work.
That's definitely a great recommendation. As you were describing those different mindsets and the background that creates those mindsets, I was thinking that actually talking about explicitly, talking about mindsets might be a great retrospective exercise. And because you're a social anthropologist, you probably have some interview methods or ideas on how to help people kind of explore their own mindsets, right? And bring that to the fore. Have you tried something like that? Did you have any success in helping people kind of be self-aware of the mindset they bring in when they come to a team?
Yeah, what I think is really helpful, what I did quite a lot, not a lot, but a few times in retrospectives with teams, is to ask a team to make a little personal map for themselves, with themselves in the center, and the things that then influence them in their personal lives, but also in their professional lives, in their education, in their daily work life. And to just share this kind of information, I think is really, really interesting, and makes it a lot easier to understand why people act like they act in a workplace. Like having children is, I think, very obvious part that has a big influence on your life, also in the working mode. But there might be other things. Like I remember one team member who told, like, oh yeah, we always travel to Mexico once every year via ship because I don't fly. I was like, what? You're going to Mexico every year to visit your family, but you don't fly?
It's like 2 weeks on a boat or something.
Yeah. And that, of course, also has big effect on the team, because then this team member cannot be reached, but still it's an important part of that team member's life. And so we as a team have to see how we integrate it.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And definitely personal maps can be a great way to help people not only discover their colleagues, but also discover themselves, right? To put things on paper, to think through and to reflect on what are the things that influence us. So thank you
And
for
sometimes
sharing that.
why I act like I act in a specific situation, or what may be very triggering for me, where I don't act with my conscious mind on, but very emotionally.
Absolutely, absolutely, and sometimes teams themselves, as a group, act emotionally. And again, given your background, I'm quite interested to hear what you have to share with us, because this is definitely a question that invites us to explore what are the dynamics, right? The little behaviors that grow over time and develop in a team, ultimately causing big trouble for the team and not just the team sometimes. So tell us that story, Caterina.
So once I worked with a team of software developers working on a software solution, and they were really hooked up on their technical debt. They were going on about it. Oh, we have so much technical debt. We really have to take care about it. Please, dear product owner, we need an entire sprint for solving our technical debt. And I was like, okay, I don't know, but let's talk about it. And so once I think when we started really including the product owner and had a closer look on the many topics that were there, we realized that many of them are not really relevant for the value of our product, and not so important after all. And it really freed us, because then we decided together, okay, that is on our list since a very long time. We never had time before, but we don't need it. It doesn't bring any value to it anymore. Maybe at that time we felt like it, but now things have really much changed. And for me here, the learning was that when your team constantly talks about something, really give them the space and then look into the thing. What is it actually? And do we really need it? Or is it just this feeling of cleaning up, of making things right? Because I think that is something some teams tend to really have their nice clean backlog, and I can totally relate to that feeling, because you want things in order, and Scrum also really helps us putting things in order, but then really taking a step back and having a look on what is the value, and does it really affect our solution or doesn't it, and then just get rid of it. I think the garbage bin should be always really close by for backlog items. Don't be afraid to put things in, because important stuff always comes up again.
Absolutely. I think your last addition is just perfect. I remember once I was working with a team and we had like this, we were all co-located. We have this big board where we had all of our work items and the state they were in and so on. But there was also a big physical trash bin with a big Post-it pointing to it next to the wall that said trash. But we also had, and that was really cool, a very old freezer that wasn't working anymore, but it was like a small freezer. And we had a freezer pointing to it where we could put stuff that we didn't consider would be important in the near future, but we didn't want to lose. It wasn't garbage, right? So that was one way in which we visualized that. As you were
Really
describing
nice.
this dynamic, I thought first when you started describing this dynamic, I thought, okay, so they really had a big problem. But then you surprised me when you said when we started looking at it together with the product owner, we realized that many of those items didn't make sense anymore. They weren't valuable for our solution and for our customers. And at that point, I thought, maybe that repetitive talking about technical debt on the team's perspective, it was not so much about the technical debt, but perhaps about a fear, right? Like this loss of control. Oh, we wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do this, but we could never do it, right? And
Yeah.
if you don't talk about those things have the habit of taking over your mind, right? They are always there. Oh, we didn't fix that. We must go back and fix it. And it just becomes a mental burden for the whole team if you don't talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And it felt just really clearing to just get it out of the way. And of course, we had to spend some time on it, actual dedicated time to look through everything. but then deciding on the spot, do we need it? Is it valuable or not? Or what from it is valuable for us at this point or not? Just really freed us from this mental baggage. And then we still had this, of course, little drawer in the kitchen where you put everything, all the sheets, and it's just cluttered. And every software has this corner as well. But it's just how it is.
Absolutely. And it's okay not to fix certain things that you wanted to fix if, when we look at it as a team and together with the product owner, we decide that it's not necessary.
Yeah, especially if you work with legacy systems.
Which we all do after the first sprint, right?
Yeah, right. Because it's just impossible to have everything neat and in order and still have capacity to develop new stuff, right? We don't want to just clean up the old stuff. We want to have capacity to build something new and nice and cool new features for our customers, and not just cleaning up little boxes left and right.
Absolutely.
You always have to find a nice balance, I think.
That's it. That's really it. We have to find a nice balance. Thank you for sharing that story, Caterina.
Thank you, Vasco.
Tuesday is Team Day here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. But tomorrow we talk about something that goes beyond the work we do with the teams. We will talk about how to lead change and what our guests have learned from leading and participating in change programs during their career. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.